Hello, this is RabidRetrospectGames, and this is my Resident Evil 7 review. I'm doing my review on the PlayStation 4 platform, and at the time of this recording, I've currently completed Resident Evil 7 4 separate times. Once on normal, twice on Madhouse, and once on easy. Now with that out of the way, let's get started. Resident Evil 7 is a first-person survival horror game developed by Capcom with an emphasis on survival. This is definitely closer in tone and style to the original tank-controlled Resident Evil games than the more action-heavy games post-Resident Evil 4. You play Ethan, a man on the mission to find his wife Mia, who's been missing 3 years after receiving a mysterious tape that finds himself going to Dulvey, Louisiana. However, things are not as they appear, and Ethan soon finds himself trapped with the Baker family and must find a way for himself and his wife to escape the oncoming nightmare. The story is very welcoming to newcomers and can almost be considered a soft reboot of sorts. I personally found the narrative to be very enjoyable, and the Baker family are some of the more interesting antagonists the series has ever produced. And your stay with the Baker family is going to be a difficult one. Supplies are limited, and enemies can kill you in just a few hits even on the normal difficulty setting. You are expected to manage what ammo and health items you find in conjunction with key items in your backpack. This sometimes means either combining items to free up space and obtain more ammo or stronger healing items via chemical compounds, or making a trip back to the storage chest. Personally, I never had that much of a problem keeping free space in my inventory. You're probably going to be using up more items than you can replace at any given moment, especially on the harder difficulties. Your backpack has a limited carrying capacity that can be upgraded via additional backpacks located throughout the game, and they give you just enough space to hold a few guns. Upgrades are also located throughout different portions of the game in the form of bird cages that require coins to spin before you can unlock the contents contained within. Puzzles do make a return and can sometimes require backtracking or combining items to solve them. However, none of them are as obtuse as older Resident Evil games, save for one or two spots. Enemies are once again very tough to deal with, and the best solution is to just sometimes outright run away and avoid conflict and save your supplies for when you truly need them. It's very classic Resident Evil. You're not going to be fighting your way out of most situations. Speaking of classic Resident Evil, one of the more unique challenges comes in the form of the Baker family. Now, you learn more about their motives and characteristics throughout the course of the game through various tapes that show them post-infection, and through a few notes and cutscenes pre-infection. And certain members of the family will roam the estate and act like mini Resident Evil 3 Nemesis bosses. They can take a lot of damage and always keep coming back, so it's best to avoid them outright. It's one of my favorite aspects of the game, but they do feel underutilized for the most part. Even clumsy players will probably have no difficulty sneaking around the family and avoiding conflict with them. It's a minor complaint in the grand scheme, but worth mentioning all the same. There are multiple boss fights throughout the game, each with their own unique ways of winning, and although I will admit that I wish we'd gotten a few extra, especially in the second half, but the ones that we got are fun. The game has a great atmosphere, and it really does feel like Capcom tried to make this game scary. I personally never found myself outright terrified, but it was a tense experience throughout. Adding to the atmosphere is a rather subtle musical score and some gorgeous visuals. I really enjoyed how decrepit and run down everything looked. The world had a palpable grime and grit to it. The only place where Resident Evil 7 struggles is in the second half of the game. You don't spend your entire stay with the Baker family, unfortunately. Not to get too spoilery, but the second half of the game is divided between a section on a boat, including a flashback tape portion that has you go through the same boat again, but uninfected, and a mining section. Additionally, there is a completely pointless choice that changes which ending you receive. Now, it's not that the second half is outright bad, but it doesn't reach the heights that the first half did. Although I will admit that the story bits are enjoyable and do add some classic Resident Evil cheese to the overall narrative, I just hated the environment. The Baker family's estate is just more enjoyable for my tastes. Some of the other negatives are that there are a few plot lines left unresolved, and you'll know when you get there, and that's all I'll say on that to avoid spoilers for this video. There is also a lack in enemy variety. There's about 4 types of the molded and a few variations of the Baker family, and that's about it. I feel like this game could have benefited from just a few more enemy types, just for variety's sake. Now, overall, Resident Evil 7 is a great package, but I do need to warn you that it does lack in longevity. While the unlockable Madhouse difficulty is great and changes up key item locations and makes the experience significantly harder, I don't know if that, along with the other unlockables, are enough for everyone. Although, I will admit subsequent playthroughs with infinite ammo after beating the game on Madhouse feels so satisfying. I love plowing through the enemies on easy with the Magnum without having to worry about saving ammo or anything like that. Overall, I do highly recommend Resident Evil 7. It's a different take on the series, and I hope it's successful enough to warrant future similar sequels. It's not the game changer Resident Evil 4 was, but I still had a great time with it all the same. If you're a fan of survival horror games, you owe it to yourself to try Resident Evil 7 out. Just be warned that there is a lack of features and content outside the main game. Now, this has been RabidRetrospectGames, and I hope you enjoyed the video.